2 days before our cross-state road trip, I refused to sign the loan papers, and he answered with his fist right under the dashcam mounted on my windshield. Mom stood on the porch, unblinking. Her, "You brought this on yourself," colder than the night wind. I thought that was rock bottom. Then I opened the backup memory card. Kurt's confession about torching the warehouse for insurance money. Only one question remained: would I stay silent like I had for 10 years, or hit share, and let the whole town hear the truth? My name is Ava Mercer, and after 12 hours troubleshooting server crashes at North Star Help Desk, all I wanted was a hot shower in my bed. Instead, I walked into my mother's living room to find Kurt Halden spread across the couch like he owned the place, which technically he did, at least half of it. The smell hit me first. Stale beer, mixed with that particular brand of cologne he bought by the gallon at the discount store. Papers covered the coffee table, their edges weighted down with empty Coors cans. Kurt's meaty fingers drummed against his thigh as I set down my laptop bag. "About time," he said, not looking up from the TV. "Need you to look at something." I recognized the documents before I even sat down. Refinancing paperwork, home equity loan applications, and there, gleaming like a poisonous snake among the mundane forms, a recreational vehicle loan for $85,000. "Sign here, and initial there." Kurt pushed a pen toward me, still watching his game. "Got us approved for the whole package. Your credit score finally worth something." The fluorescent kitchen light hummed behind us. Mom stood at the sink, her back rigid as she scrubbed the same plate for the 3rd time. She knew what this was about. She always knew. "I'm not signing anything, Kurt." That got his attention. His head swiveled toward me, jaw working like he was chewing tobacco. "Come again." I said no. "I'm not co-signing your loans." "Your loans." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This is for the family, Princess. That RV means we can finally take your mother somewhere nice. The refinance gets us breathing room." Breathing room, that's what he'd called it last time, when he'd needed me to co-sign for his truck. And the time before that, for the boat that now sat rusting in the side yard. "Mom," I said, but she'd moved to wiping down counters that were already spotless. Kurt stood, all 6'3" of him, construction worker frame still solid despite the beer gut. "Listen here, Miss High and Mighty, you live under this roof rent-free. I pay you $800 a month. And it's time you contributed to this family properly." His voice dropped to that register I remembered from childhood, the one that used to make me hide in my closet. "Your mother and I have plans, big plans, and we need your signature to make them happen." I gathered the papers, scanning them properly for the first time. The numbers made my stomach turn. $340,000 refinance on a house worth maybe $200,000. Personal guarantees, my name listed as primary on half the documents. These terms are predatory. The interest rate alone. "Don't give me that college girl bullshit," Kurt snatched the papers back. "You think you're better than us. Think that fancy computer job makes you special." I stood to leave. That's when he grabbed my shoulder, the bad one. The one I'd injured in high school volleyball that still acted up when the weather changed. His fingers dug in deep. "You're not walking away from this. Let go. Sign the fucking papers, Ava." I twisted free, but he followed me toward the garage door. Mom had stopped pretending to clean. She stood frozen by the sink, dish towel clutched in her hands like a lifeline. "Kurt, maybe we should," she started. "Shut up, Lydia, I'm handling this." The garage was dark, cold. My Honda sat next to his truck, and I noticed the new Dashcam I'd installed last week for the planned road trip with my book club. The red recording light blinked steadily, a small electronic eye capturing everything through the windshield, and more importantly, through the wide-angle lens that covered the garage entrance. "You're going to sign," Kurt said, advancing. "One way or another." "I'm leaving." That's when he snapped. Not the slow burn anger I was used to, but something immediate and vicious. His palm connected with my shoulder, the bad one, in a sharp thrust that sent me spinning into the wall. Pain exploded down my arm as something shifted wrongly inside the joint. "Shit," Kurt muttered, but not from remorse. He was looking at my car, at the dash cam. You recording me? I cradled my arm, biting back the scream building in my throat. Through the garage door, I could see Mom standing in the doorway. Our eyes met. Mom, I managed. She looked at me, at Kurt, at my shoulder already starting to swell. Then she said the words that cut deeper than any physical pain. You brought this on yourself. She turned and walked back into the house, closing the door with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. Kurt's face had gone pale. Get out, he said. Get your shit and get out. You're done here. I grabbed my laptop bag with my good arm, fumbled for my car keys. The dash cam kept recording as I backed out of the garage, Kurt's silhouette framed in the doorway. He didn't look triumphant. He looked scared. But not as scared as he should have been. The drive to Mason's apartment took 15 minutes that felt like hours. Every pothole sent fresh waves of agony through my shoulder. I parked crooked, not caring, and stumbled up the 2 flights to his door. When Mason answered, hair mussed from sleep, wearing old sweatpants and a Nirvana t-shirt, I nearly collapsed from relief. Jesus, Ava. He caught me as I swayed. What happened? Can I come in? He was already pulling me inside, his hands gentle as he guided me to his couch. The apartment smelled like coffee and laundry detergent, so different from the toxic fog of Mom's house. Your shoulder's dislocated, he said after a careful examination. Mason had been a paramedic before burning out and switching to freelance graphic design. Hospital or just do it. He gave me a look that said we'd talk about this later, then positioned himself. On 3, 1. He pulled on 2. The joint slipped back into place with a sickening pop that made me see stars, but the relief was immediate, even through the residual ache. Kurt, Mason asked, already knowing the answer. I nodded. You need to file a report. With what proof it's my word against his? And Mom, my voice cracked. Mom took his side. Mason disappeared into his bedroom, returning with a proper sling and an ice pack. As he helped me get situated, I told him about the loans, the confrontation, Mom's betrayal. His face darkened with each detail. I'm going over there, he said when I finished. No, that's what he wants, an excuse to play victim. I pulled out my phone, showed him the Dashcam app. Besides, I might have something better than a confrontation. The footage was perfect. Crystal clear audio of the entire argument, video of the assault, even Kurt's panic when he realized he was being recorded. Mason watched in grim silence. That's assault and battery, he said. Clear as day. Or it's leverage. Ava. I need to think. I closed the app, pushed the phone away. Can I stay here tonight? You know you don't have to ask. He disappeared again, coming back with blankets and a pillow. Couch pulls out. But honestly, take my bed. I'll crash out here. Mason. Non-negotiable. You need proper rest for that shoulder. He paused in the doorway. For what it's worth. I'm proud of you. Standing up to him like that. After he left, I lay in his bed staring at the ceiling. The Dashcam footage played on repeat in my mind. I'd captured Kurt's violence, yes, but also something else in those final moments. Fear. He knew he'd screwed up. The question was, what was he afraid of, the assault charge, or something more? I reached for my phone, pulled up the Dashcam app again. The camera saved footage in segments, and I noticed it had been recording earlier than I'd thought. There was another file from when I'd first arrived home. Just audio, but clear enough. Kurt and Mom talking before I'd walked in. Told you she'd never agree to it. Mom's voice. Then we make her. I've got too much writing on this. Lydia, the warehouse policy comes due next month, and if they investigate, they won't. You said the fire marshal signed off. Yeah, but that was before the feds started sniffing around the construction contracts. I need this refinance to move some things around, make it all look clean. My blood went cold. The warehouse. Kurt ran a storage facility on the outskirts of town, one that had suffered a devastating fire last year. He'd collected a massive insurance payout, used it to expand his construction business. But if the fire hadn't been accidental, I downloaded all the footage to my phone, then backed it up to 3 different cloud services. Whatever game Kurt was playing, he'd just made a critical error. He'd given me ammunition. The morning came too soon. Mason was already up, working on his laptop at the kitchen table with 2 mugs of coffee steaming beside him. He'd made eggs and toast, arranged pain medication next to my plate like a pharmacy display. "How's the shoulder?" "Stiff." I rotated it experimentally, wincing. "But functional." "Good, because we have an appointment at First Haven Bank in an hour." I paused mid-bite. You think I'm letting you handle this alone?" Mason closed his laptop, fixed me with that steady gaze I remembered from childhood, the same look he'd given me when I was 7 and he was 10, promising to walk me to school after some older kids had been hassling me. Kurt crossed a line. Mom crossed a line. This ends now. The drive to First Haven Bank was quiet, except for Mason's jazz playlist humming through the speakers. I'd switched the memory card in my Dashcam before we left, installing a fresh one set to loop recording. The original sat safe in my pocket, a tiny piece of plastic that might change everything. "You know why I really left home?" Mason asked suddenly, taking the exit toward downtown. "It wasn't just the military scholarship." I waited. Senior year, Mom co-signed a loan for Kurt, 20 grand for equipment. He defaulted 3 months later, left her holding the bag. She emptied her retirement to cover it. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. When I confronted him, he laughed, said it was the price of keeping a roof over our heads. Mom just accepted it. She never told me. "Of course not. You were still the baby who might get out clean." He pulled into the bank parking lot. "Looks like that plan failed." First Haven Bank occupied a corner building that tried too hard to look modern, all glass and steel fighting against the small-town atmosphere. The loan officer, Marlon Voss according to his nameplate, greeted us with the kind of smile that probably got him Employee of the Month regularly. "Ms. Mercer, perfect timing. I was just reviewing your application file." My stomach dropped. "My what?" "The refinancing package, you submitted it last week." He pulled up something on his computer, frowning. "Although I have to say, some of these signatures look—" "Hold on." Mason and I exchanged glances as Voss pulled out a folder. Comparing documents, his frown deepened. "Ms. Mercer, did you sign these?" I leaned forward, examining papers I'd never seen before. My name was everywhere: loan applications, guarantee forms, authorization letters. But the signature was wrong. Close, but wrong. Someone had practiced my handwriting but couldn't quite nail the way I curved my capital M's. "No," I said quietly. "I didn't sign any of these." Voss's entire demeanor shifted. The salesman's smile vanished, replaced by something harder. "I need to get my supervisor. Don't go anywhere." The next hour blurred into a parade of increasingly senior bank officials, security personnel, and finally a fraud investigator named Dana Ito, who took detailed notes while I explained the situation. She produced more documents: car loans, credit applications, even an attempt to add me to Kurt's business accounts. "The forgeries go back months," Ito said, spreading papers across the conference table. "But they're all traceable to the same source. See this rental agreement? Someone used it as a template. The pressure points. The pen lifts classic tracing signatures. What does this mean for my credit?" My voice sounded distant, clinical. The full scope was still sinking in. "We'll file fraud alerts with all 3 bureaus immediately. The bank will provide a full report for law enforcement." Ito gathered the documents into evidence folders. "Have you filed a police report?"
Not yet.
"Do it today. This is systematic identity theft. Ms. Mercer, whoever did this, they weren't just trying for one loan. They were building a paper trail to make you financially responsible for significant debts." Mason's hand found my good shoulder, squeezed gently. "We need copies of everything." Ito nodded. "I'll prepare a complete file. One more thing." She pulled out a final document. "This business insurance claim from last year. Your name appears as a witness to inventory before a warehouse fire. Did you sign this?" My blood chilled. Kurt's warehouse. No, I've never been to his storage facility. Then we have insurance fraud on top of identity theft. Ito's expression was grim. This is going to trigger a federal investigation. Outside the bank, I had to sit on a bench until the world stopped spinning. Mason paced in front of me, phone already out. We need a lawyer, a good one. I can't afford. I can, non-negotiable. He was already scrolling through contacts. Remember that contract dispute I had last year? My attorney specializes in fraud cases. The weight of it all pressed down like a physical force. This wasn't just about refused loans or a moment of violence. Kurt had been systematically using my identity, building a framework where I'd take the fall for his schemes. And Mom had to have known. Those signatures required personal information, social security numbers, details only she could have provided. The dashcam footage? I said suddenly. Kurt mentioned the warehouse, federal investigations. He needed the refinance to move things around. Mason stopped pacing. He was covering his tracks. Or trying to. I pulled out my phone, found the audio file. We need to get this to client privilege first. We talked to the lawyer, then law enforcement. Mason helped me stand. Come on, we have more stops to make. The drive to the county courthouse records division felt surreal. Armed with the fraud report from First Haven Bank, we gained access to public records that painted an increasingly damning picture. Loan applications with forged signatures, property transfers that didn't add up, a web of financial manipulation with my name woven throughout. Look at this, Mason said, pointing to a business filing. Halden Storage LLC added you as a board member 6 months ago. What I don't know anything about his business. Exactly. But if the feds come knocking about insurance fraud, guess whose name is on the corporate documents? The clerk, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, watched us pile up copies. You kids finding what you need. Unfortunately, yes, I said. She lowered her voice. Word of advice, whatever mess you're untangling. Document everything, timestamps, copies, witness names, build your case airtight. We thanked her and moved to the mail records section. Sure enough, there it was. Returned mail for denied auto loans. Sent to Mom's address 4 months ago. She would have seen them. She would have known Kurt was using my name. Mason made copies while I sat with the growing pile of evidence. Each page felt like another betrayal, another crack in the foundation of family I'd tried so hard to preserve. But beneath the hurt, something else was building. Not quite anger, something colder, more focused. Hey, Mason's voice pulled me back. You okay? I'm going to destroy him, I heard myself say. Legally, thoroughly. I'm going to dismantle everything he's built on lies and forgery. My brother studied my face, then nodded slowly. Good. But first, we protect you. Lawyer, police report, secure your assets. Then we go on offense. As we loaded boxes of copies into his car, I pulled out the backup memory card from my dashcam. Such a small thing to hold so much power. The main card kept recording my current trip, but this one held Kurt's confession, his violence, his fear. One more stop, I said. I need a few more memory cards. If Kurt knows I have footage, he might try something. I want backups of backups. Mason started the car. Smart, we'll hit the electronics store, then head to the lawyer's office. She cleared her afternoon for us. As Harbor Ridge rolled past the windows, the diner where Mom used to take us for birthday breakfasts, the park where Mason taught me to ride a bike, the high school where I'd first learned to stand up for myself, I felt something shift. This wasn't the hometown I'd been clinging to. This was just geography. Buildings and streets that had witnessed too much silence, too much complicity. After this is over, I said, I'm leaving Harbor Ridge. About time, Mason replied. I've got a spare room in Portland, just saying. I managed a small smile, the first in what felt like days. Let me finish burning down Kurt's paper empire first. Fair enough. He turned toward the electronics store. Then we rebuild somewhere better. The dash cam kept recording as we drove, its red light a steady reminder. Everything leaves a trace, every lie, every betrayal, every moment of truth. Kurt had taught me that, in his way. Now I was going to teach him what happened when those traces led back to him. The electronics store stop was quick 3 memory cards, a portable backup drive, and a cloud storage subscription that would keep my evidence safe even if everything physical disappeared. Mason waited in the car, making calls to set up our legal consultation while I created redundant copies of the dashcam footage. By the time we reached the law offices of Archer and Associates, I'd uploaded everything to 3 different cloud services, hidden a memory card in my apartment, and mailed another to Mason's P.O. box across town. Paranoid, maybe, but Kurt had already shown how far he'd go. Bryn Archer wasn't what I'd expected. Instead of the stern, gray-suited attorney I'd imagined, she greeted us in jeans and a blazer, her office walls covered with rock-climbing photos and federal court admissions. The Grateful Dead played softly from hidden speakers. "Mason filled me in on the basics," she said, gesturing us to chairs. "Identity theft, assault, potential insurance fraud. Let's see what we're working with." For the next 2 hours, we laid out everything: the forged signatures, the assault footage, the overheard conversation about the warehouse fire. Archer took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking sharp questions that cut straight to the heart of things. "This is good," she said finally, setting down her pen. "Really good. Your stepfather made several critical mistakes. First, the pattern of forgeries shows clear intent to defraud. Second, the assault was captured on video that's a felony with your injury, but the insurance fraud—" She leaned back. "That's what's going to bury him." "Can you prove it?" I asked. "I don't have to. The feds will. Once they start pulling threads, these schemes unravel fast." She pulled out a fresh pad. "Here's what we do. Criminal complaints, first assault, identity theft, fraud. The dashcam gives us probable cause. Then we go civil. Sue for damages. Get injunctions to freeze his assets. Protect your credit." "What about my mother?" The question hurt to ask. Archer's expression softened slightly. "Did she forge signatures, handle documents, or just know about it?" I don't know." "Then we focus on what we can prove. Kurt's the primary target. If your mother was actively involved, that'll come out in discovery." Mason spoke up. "How do we protect Ava in the meantime? Kurt's not stupid. Once he knows she's fighting back." "Restraining order, immediately. The assault video makes that straightforward." Archer made another note. "Change your locks, vary your routines. Consider staying somewhere else for a while." "I'm at Mason's," I said. "Good. Keep it that way." She stood. "All business now. I'll file the criminal complaints today. Civil suit by end of week. In the meantime, I need you to write down everything you remember. Dates, conversations, any financial documents you signed legitimately versus ones you didn't. Detail is your friend." We were gathering our things when she added, "One more thing. That dashcam footage you mentioned Kurt talking about federal investigations into construction contracts." I nodded. "I have contacts at the FBI's white-collar crime division. This might be bigger than just your family." She handed me a business card. "Full disclosure, I spent 6 years as a federal prosecutor specializing in insurance fraud. Your stepfather picked the wrong person to mess with." The drive back to Mason's felt different. Having Archer on our side, having a plan, it transformed helpless rage into focused determination. We stopped by my work to update HR about the situation and request emergency time off. My supervisor, Janet, took one look at my slinged arm and the stress written across my face and approved a week immediately. "Take care of yourself," she said. "Job will be here when you're ready." Back at Mason's apartment, I sat at his kitchen table with a legal pad and started writing. Every interaction with Kurt that involved money, every time Mom had asked for financial information for taxes or insurance updates, the pattern emerged slowly. Like a photograph developing in reverse, what had seemed like family requests were reconnaissance missions. Mason cooked while I wrote, the smell of garlic and basil filling the small space. Normal. Domestic sounds that felt like armor against the chaos we'd unleashed. "Remember, Dad?" I asked suddenly. Mason paused in his stirring. "Bits and pieces. You were pretty young when he died. 4. But I remember he used to check the locks 3 times every night. Mom said he was paranoid. I set down my pen. Maybe he just knew her better than we did. Don't. Mason's voice was firm. Don't rewrite good memories because of what's happening now. Dad loved us. That was real. The doorbell rang, making us both freeze. Mason peered through the peephole, then relaxed. Delivery. I ordered Thai. Normal life, continuing despite everything. We ate pad Thai and talked about anything except Kurt, Mom, or the legal storm we'd set in motion. Mason showed me his latest design project. I fixed a bug in his website code. For an hour, we were just siblings sharing dinner. Then my phone rang. Mom. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over decline. You don't have to, Mason started. I answered. Ava Marie Mercer. Her voice was ice. What have you done? Protected myself. By destroying your family, Kurt just got served papers at work. Criminal charges. Ava. Criminal. Do you have any idea what you've done to us? What I've done. The laugh escaped before I could stop it. He's been forging my signature for months. He assaulted me. And you knew. Didn't you? You knew about the loans. Silence. Then, he's your father. He's not my father. He's a con artist who happens to sleep in Dad's bed. How dare you? Did you give him my social security number? I cut her off. Did you help him forge those documents? I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't. But you'll have to answer these questions under oath. Archer and Associates will be in touch. I hung up before she could respond, hands shaking. Mason took the phone, powered it off. Enough for tonight. You did good. But lying in bed later, staring at the ceiling in Mason's spare room, I wondered if good was the right word. Necessary. Yes. Justified. Absolutely. But good. I was dismantling my family, preparing to send my stepfather to prison and potentially implicate my mother as an accomplice. Then I remembered the fear in Kurt's voice on that recording. If the feds start sniffing around. He'd built his crimes on the assumption I'd never fight back. That family loyalty would keep me silent. Every forged signature was a bet that I'd remain the quiet girl who hid in closets. He'd bet wrong. I reached for the backup drive on the nightstand, held it like a talisman. Tomorrow, there would be more lawyer meetings, police reports, maybe even a call from the FBI. The road ahead looked like a battlefield. But for the first time in years, I wasn't walking it alone. Mason was here. Archer was fighting for me. And I had something Kurt never expected proof. I thought about the road trip I was supposed to take in 2 days. 3 friends. A long weekend exploring the coast. Books to discuss over wine and beach sunsets. That life felt impossibly distant now. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some roads had to end before new ones could begin. The backup drive sat heavy in my hand, full of evidence that would reshape everything. Tomorrow, I'd take the next steps in dismantling Kurt's empire of lies. Tonight, I held the proof close and let myself imagine a future where signatures were sacred, family meant safety, and home was anywhere Kurt Halden wasn't. The investigation hadn't even officially started, and already I felt the ground shifting. Bank fraud, insurance fraud, assault, identity theft. The charges would stack like dominoes, each one toppling into the next. I set the drive back on the nightstand and closed my eyes. In the living room, I could hear Mason working, probably researching legal precedents or designing security upgrades for my digital life. Family, real family. Sometimes it looked nothing like what you expected. Sometimes it looked like your brother making sure you had encrypted backups while you prepared to send your stepfather to federal prison. I slept better than I had in years. The Silver County Records Archive occupied the basement of a building that hadn't seen renovation since the Carter administration. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Mason and I descended into what felt like a catacomb of filing cabinets and forgotten paperwork. Charming, Mason muttered, eyeing water stains on the ceiling. The clerk who'd helped us the day before had called that morning. Found something else you might want to see, she'd said. Can't leave the building, but you can make copies. Now she led us through narrow aisles to a section marked Business Licenses, Inactive. Kurt Halden's had 3 different LLCs over the years, she explained, pulling folders. 2 dissolved after tax issues, but this one, she handed me a manila folder. Halden Construction Services. Check the partner listings. My name appeared as a 30% owner. Dated 2 years ago. 2 years. I'd been at Mom's for Sunday dinner that week, probably washing dishes while Kurt forged documents in the next room. There's more. The clerk pulled another box. Mail forwarding records. Everything sent to this fake partner address bounced back here. We spent 3 hours in that basement, excavating a paper trail of deception. Loan rejection letters addressed to me at phantom addresses. Tax documents I'd never seen. Business correspondence about contracts I knew nothing about. Each returned envelope was stamped undeliverable and filed away a bureaucratic breadcrumb trail of fraud. Jesus, Mason said, photographing pages. He built you an entire shadow financial life. One envelope made my hands shake. Workers' compensation claim. Denied. The business had tried to file for an employee injury at the warehouse dated 1 week before the fire. He was already in trouble, I said. The fire wasn't just insurance fraud. He was covering up safety violations. The clerk watched us work with knowing eyes. Seen this before. Family business, family betrayal, always uglier than stranger crime. By the time we emerged, blinking in the afternoon sun, we had 4 boxes of copies and a clearer picture of Kurt's systematic plan to make me his financial fall guy. But one detail nagged at me. All the returned mail went to county records. But someone had been checking it. There were date stamps, initials LH. Lydia Halden, Mom. She knew, I said in the car. Every rejected loan, every bounced notice. She was tracking what didn't get through. Mason's jaw tightened. Then she's not just complicit, she's an accomplice. We drove to Harbor Ridge Police Department in silence. The assault report needed to be filed, and now we had context that transformed a moment of violence into part of a larger pattern. The desk sergeant took one look at the banker's box of evidence we carried and called for a detective. Detective Rosa Thorne looked like she'd seen enough family crimes to write a textbook. She took my statement about the assault, watched the dashcam footage twice, then started connecting dots. This isn't just battery, she said. With the fraud evidence, this becomes witness intimidation. He assaulted you to force participation in ongoing crimes. She pulled out additional forms. I'm calling the DA's office. This needs coordinated prosecution. The medical examination was clinical, thorough. Photographs of bruises I hadn't noticed. Documentation of the shoulder injury. The doctor, an older woman with gentle hands, noted everything in detail that would hold up in court. Press charges, she said quietly as she finished. Whatever he is to your family. Men who do this don't stop. Back at the station, Detective Thorne had news. The DA wants to convene a grand jury. Your evidence, plus what First Haven Bank provided, gives us enough for multiple felony indictments. How long? Mason asked. Grand jury could convene within 2 weeks, but Mr. Halden will know we're building a case. You need to be careful. She was right. By evening, my phone had 17 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Kurt's business line, and a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. Miss Mercer, this is Stan Bradshaw from Bradshaw & Associates. I represent Kurt Halden. We need to discuss these baseless accusations you're making. Call me immediately. I played it for Bryn Archer over speakerphone. Bradshaw's a hack, she said. Ambulance chaser who takes anyone with a retainer. Don't return his calls. Don't respond to anything. Let him talk to me. He'll try to intimidate her, Mason said. Let him try. Every threat, every contact is more evidence. Kurt's panicking, making mistakes. I could hear her typing. I'm filing for an emergency protective order tonight. Judge Kowalski owes me a favor. That night, Mason installed new locks, a security system, and cameras covering every angle of his apartment. Overkill, maybe, but the way he moved efficient. Determined told me he'd been planning this since the moment I'd shown up injured. You were ready for this, I observed. I've been expecting something like this for years. He tested the door sensor. Kept hoping I was wrong. I helped him set up the monitoring app. My mind drifting to the evidence boxes stacked in the corner. Each document was another brick in the wall we were building around Kurt, but something was missing. "The warehouse," I said suddenly. "We have his comments about the fire, the insurance payout, but no direct evidence of arson." "You think there's more?" I pulled out my laptop, started searching. Halden's storage facility fire, insurance claims, investigations. The articles were basic fire department response, total loss, no injuries, but buried in a business journal piece about insurance payouts, I found it. Security footage from neighboring businesses was requested but not provided, citing technical failures. "Convenient," Mason said, reading over my shoulder. "Or deliberate." I kept searching, found the neighbors, a plumbing supply company and a 24-hour gym, both with external cameras. The Dashcam file when Kurt mentioned the fire. He was agitated. What if he wasn't just worried about investigation? What if he knew evidence existed? "You want to go asking questions?" "I want to check my Dashcam's backup files." I pulled out the spare memory card. "This thing records on motion detection when parked. I had it installed a week ago, but the old files?" My fingers flew across the laptop, accessing the cloud backup I'd set up. The Dashcam had been cycling files, but the cloud kept everything. And there, dated 6 days ago, a long recording triggered by motion detection while my car was parked at Mom's house. Kurt's truck pulling up, him walking to my car, trying the doors, peering at the Dashcam. Then, clear as day, his voice on a phone call. "Need to know if the gym kept their old footage. Insurance guy was asking about neighboring cameras. Yeah, from last year's fire. Just find out and let me know." "Holy shit," Mason breathed. "He's still covering tracks." I saved the file in 3 places, sent a copy to Archer. This wasn't just about forged signatures anymore. Kurt was actively working to hide evidence of a year-old arson, which meant evidence existed. "We need those gym security files," I said. "No, the FBI needs them. This just became a federal case." Mason was already texting Archer. "Let the professionals take over the dangerous parts." He was right, but the adrenaline in my system wanted immediate action. I forced myself to focus on what I could control: documenting, organizing, building an airtight case. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Mason checked the new camera feed. Relaxed slightly. Delivery. But when he opened the door, it wasn't food. A process server handed him an envelope, confirmed his name, and left without a word. "What is it?" I asked. Mason opened the envelope, scanned the contents, then laughed sharp and bitter. "Kurt's suing me for defamation and interference with family relations, claiming I'm poisoning you against him." "He can't be serious." "Oh, he's serious. He's trying to separate us. Remove your support system." Mason tossed the papers aside. "Joke's on him. This just proves he's desperate." My phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code Mom's neighborhood. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ava." The voice was familiar but not family. "This is Helen from next door. Your mom's friend." "Hi, Helen. I'm worried about your mother. She's not handling things well. Drinking, crying. Kurt's been gone since this morning, and she keeps saying you're destroying her life." I closed my eyes. "Helen, did you know Kurt was forging my signature on loans?" Silence. Then, quietly, "I suspected something, the mail that came, the way she'd hide it, but it wasn't my place." "It's everyone's place when crimes are being committed." "You're right. I'm sorry." She paused. "There's something else. Years ago, before the warehouse fire, I saw Kurt loading boxes late at night, documents, computers. Thought it was strange. Him emptying the place out like that." My pulse quickened. "Would you tell that to investigators?" "If it helps you, yes. Your father would be proud." "Ava, standing up like this?" After I hung up, Mason and I sat in the growing dark, security system lights blinking like electronic stars. Tomorrow would bring more battles, legal filings. federal investigators, the weight of a family's collapse. But tonight, we had evidence, we had allies, and most importantly, we had each other. The road to justice was longer than I'd imagined, but every document we'd found, every connection we'd made, shortened the distance. Kurt had built his house of cards on my name, my credit, my silence. Card by card, we were pulling it down. The backup memory card from my Dashcam felt heavier than its 3 ounces should have allowed. I'd been cycling through the files for 2 hours. Mason bringing coffee and sandwiches as I hunted through hours of parking mode recordings. Most were mundane people walking dogs, delivery trucks, the occasional raccoon triggering the motion sensor. Then I found it. Mason, my voice came out strangled. Look at this. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., dated 13 months ago, a week before the warehouse fire. The camera had activated when Kurt's truck pulled into Mom's driveway. But the angle caught more than just our house. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable in the HD footage, was the orange glow of flames reflecting off clouds in the direction of the industrial district. The warehouse, Mason breathed. But that wasn't the damning part. Kurt got out of his truck, and in the Dashcam's audio pickup, we could hear him on his phone. Yeah, it's done. No, I was never there. Been at Rossetti's bar since 9, check the receipts. Got 3 guys who'll swear I never left. Insurance adjuster comes around. We stick to the story. Electrical problems, right? That faulty panel we documented last month. My hands shook as I saved the file. He planned it, established an alibi, had witnesses lined up. This is evidence of conspiracy, Mason said. Premeditated arson, insurance fraud. Probably witness tampering if he paid those guys to lie. I backed up the file immediately, sending copies to Archer and uploading to multiple secure servers. The timestamp was crucial. The fire department's official report listed the first 911 call at 11:52 p.m. Kurt was on the phone discussing the completed arson 5 minutes before anyone reported the flames. We need to get this to... Mason started. The lights went out. Not just in the apartment, the whole block plunged into darkness. Through the window, I could see the street lamps were dead. Power outage, maybe, but the timing. Get the evidence, Mason whispered, already moving. All of it. We worked by phone flashlight, shoving laptops, hard drives, and document boxes into bags. The security system had a battery backup, still recording, its infrared mode painting everything in ghostly grays on Mason's phone screen. There, he pointed, a figure by the building's side entrance, trying the door. Could be anyone, I said, but my voice shook. The figure turned, and in the infrared clarity, I recognized the bulk of Kurt's frame. He tried another door, then disappeared around the corner. Fire escape, Mason said. He's checking if we're home. We grabbed the bags and slipped out the front while Kurt was presumably around back. Mason's car was parked 2 blocks away. He'd been varying his parking spots all week. We made it halfway before the power flickered back on. Coincidence, I asked. Like hell. Mason threw the bags in the trunk. He probably flipped the building's main breaker. Amateur move, everything's on cameras now. We drove to the one place Kurt wouldn't expect Bryn Archer's office. She answered Mason's call on the second ring. Didn't sound surprised to be woken at midnight. Bring everything, she said. I'll call the FBI. This ends tonight. The federal building downtown looked like a fortress at night, all concrete and purpose. Agent Patricia Kepler met us in the lobby, mid-40s. Sharp suit despite the hour, eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Archer briefed me, she said, leading us to a secure conference room. Show me what triggered this midnight run. We played the Dashcam footage. Kepler watched it 3 times, making notes, then called in 2 more agents. Within an hour, the room filled with federal investigators, a forensic accountant, and someone from the U.S. Attorney's Office. This changes our entire timeline, Kepler said. We've been investigating Kurt Halden's construction contracts for 6 months. The warehouse fire always seemed suspicious, but we had no evidence. This recording proves premeditation, the attorney finished. Combined with the identity theft, the assault, the ongoing attempts to cover up, we're looking at 20 years minimum. Mason squeezed my hand under the table. 20 years. Kurt would be in his 70s when he got out, if he lived that long. We need you safe while we move on this, Kepler continued. Can you stay somewhere he wouldn't know about? My colleague has a cabin, Archer offered. Off the grid, but comfortable. I can have you there by dawn. I thought about running, hiding, letting others fight my battle. Then I remembered Mom standing in that doorway, choosing Kurt over her own daughter. No, I said. I'm done hiding, but I have one condition. Kepler raised an eyebrow. Helen Marconi, my mom's neighbor, she saw Kurt emptying the warehouse before the fire. She's willing to testify, but she's elderly, vulnerable. Can you protect her? Consider it done. Kepler made a note. Anything else? The gym next to the warehouse, Kurt was worried about their security footage. Someone should check if they still have archives from last year. Already on it, one of the younger agents looked up from his laptop. FitLife 24/7 stores footage for 18 months. We'll have a warrant within hours. The night blurred into a haze of statements, evidence cataloging, and strategic planning. By dawn, the federal case was rolling like an avalanche. Archer had filed emergency motions to freeze Kurt's assets. The grand jury would be expedited. Arrest warrants were being drafted. There's one more thing, I told Kepler as we prepared to leave. My mother, Lydia, she knew about the forgeries, might have facilitated them, but I don't think she knew about the arson. Kepler studied me. You're asking us to go easy on her. I'm asking you to be fair. She made terrible choices, but she's also been under Kurt's control for 15 years. That does things to a person. We'll evaluate her involvement carefully, Kepler promised. But Ms. Mercer, if she participated in these crimes, there will be consequences. I nodded, throat tight. It was more than Kurt would have done for any of us. Mason drove us away from the federal building as the sun painted Harbor Ridge in deceptively peaceful pastels. The evidence was in the right hands now. The machinery of justice was grinding forward, but I couldn't shake the image from the security footage, Kurt testing doors in the darkness, hunting for us. He'll know by now, Mason said, reading my thoughts, that we're not at the apartment. Good. Let him wonder where we are, what we're doing. I pulled out my phone, checking the Dashcam app, still recording, still storing files to the cloud. Technology had been Kurt's downfall. He'd never understood how modern devices create permanent records. A text from Archer. Judge signed emergency restraining order. Kurt comes within 500 feet. He's arrested. Also, FBI raided the warehouse site at 6 a.m., found accelerant residue exactly where the dashcam showed him standing. Physical evidence to match the recording. Kurt's house of cards wasn't just falling, it was being systematically demolished by experts. My phone rang. Mom. I almost didn't answer. Then, remembering what I'd told Agent Kepler about fairness, I picked up. They took him, she said, voice hollow. Federal agents. They took Kurt right from the driveway. I know. How could you? But the question lacked heat, sounded more bewildered than angry. He's not perfect, but he's been there for us, provided for us. With stolen money, Mom, with my name on fraudulent loans. I thought it was just paperwork, creative financing. Everyone does it. Everyone doesn't commit arson for insurance money. Silence. Then, so quiet, I almost missed it, the fire. He planned it. Mom, I have him on video discussing it. The feds have physical evidence. It's over. I heard her sob. Once, sharp and surprised. I need to go. They want to ask me questions. Mom, wait, get a lawyer. Don't answer anything without representation. You destroy our family and now you're giving advice. I'm trying to keep you out of prison. That's more consideration than you showed me. She hung up. I stared at the phone, wondering if that was the last conversation we'd ever have. Mason pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, cut the engine. You okay? I don't know. I leaned back, exhausted beyond measure. Is it wrong that part of me still wants to protect her? It's human. She's your mom. Even if she failed at it, he handed me a tissue I didn't realize I needed. But protecting someone doesn't mean enabling them. You did the right thing. My phone buzzed. Archer again. Kurt's attorney is melting down. Wants to negotiate. I told him to pound sand. Oh, and the insurance company is initiating clawback proceedings. They want their $400K back, plus penalties. $400,000. That's what Kurt had valued his crime at a burned warehouse full of supposedly valuable inventory that probably never existed. Now it would cost him everything. We sat in the parking lot, watching Harbor Ridge wake up. Commuters heading to work, school buses making rounds. Normal life proceeding while my family imploded, somewhere in town. Federal agents were executing warrants, seizing documents, freezing accounts. The local news would have a field day. What now? Mason asked. Now we wait for the legal system to work. I managed a tired smile. And I finally take that road trip. My book club friends have been patient, but we've got hotel reservations for tomorrow. You're serious? After all this? Especially after all this, I'm not letting Kurt steal anything else from me, including my plans. I pulled up the hotel confirmation on my phone. Besides, I'll have my Dashcam running the whole way, just in case. Mason laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd heard from him all week. Of course you will. That thing saved your life. Not my life. I thought, my future. There was a difference, and Kurt was about to learn exactly what that meant from inside a federal prison cell. The sun climbed higher, burning off the morning mist. Somewhere across town, my mother was answering questions about her complicity. Kurt was in custody. The warehouse's secrets were finally exposed. And I was free. The slashed tires on Mason's car greeted us like a violent signature. 4 clean cuts, professional almost. The car listing sadly in the coffee shop parking lot where we'd stopped to regroup. I didn't need to guess who was responsible. He's out already. Mason crouched beside the damage, running his fingers along the cuts. I checked my phone. 7 missed calls from unknown numbers. 2 voicemails from Bradshaw Kurt's lawyer, and a text from Archer. Kurt posted bail at 3 a.m. Federal hold wasn't processed in time. Stay vigilant. Son of a bitch, Mason muttered, already calling for a tow truck. The doorbell camera at Mason's apartment had captured more than just Kurt testing doors the night before. At 5:47 a.m., while we were at the federal building, a familiar figure had returned. Not Kurt this time, one of his construction crew. Jake Morrison. He'd left something on the doorstep. Don't touch it, Archer warned over speakerphone as we waited for the police. Could be anything. Let the bomb squad check it first. The package turned out to be an envelope. Inside, a formal letter from Bradshaw and Associates demanding $2 million in defamation damages, and something else, photocopies of my childhood photos with Dad, defaced with red marker. Family traitor, scrawled across each one. Intimidation tactics, Detective Thorne said, bagging the evidence. Stupid ones. This violates his bail conditions. But Kurt wasn't at his house when they went to arrest him. Wasn't at his office or any of his usual haunts. Like smoke, he'd disappeared into Harbor Ridge's margins, leaving only damage in his wake. We need that cabin, I told Archer. Now. Already arranged. But first, she guided us to her office's secure back entrance where a different car waited. Rental under the firm's name, untraceable to you. The midnight break-in at Mason's apartment turned out to be a gift in disguise. The building's security footage showed Kurt clearly. Testing doors, checking windows. His bail was revoked in absentia. Federal marshals joined the search, but we couldn't wait for them to find him. Your mother called my office, Archer said as we transferred our evidence bags to the rental. She wants to meet. Absolutely not, Mason said. I agree, but she claims to have additional evidence about the warehouse fire. Archer studied my face. It's your call. I thought about Mom's voice on the phone, the surprise when I'd mentioned arson. Either she was an exceptional actress, or she really hadn't known the extent of Kurt's crimes. Set it up, I decided. But somewhere public, somewhere safe. We met at the Harbor Ridge Public Library, in a study room with glass walls and security cameras. Mom looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 days. No makeup, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes I'd seen her in during our confrontation. "Don't trust her," Mason whispered, but he stayed close as we entered. Mom's eyes darted between us, lingering on my still healing shoulder. "I brought these," she said without preamble, pushing a box across the table. "From Kurt's office, hidden in the ceiling tiles." Archer, who'd insisted on being present, pulled on gloves before examining the contents: insurance documents, inventory lists, invoices all dated before the fire, but the numbers didn't match. The inventory Kurt had claimed was worth $400,000, showed purchase orders for maybe $50,000 in goods. "He inflated everything," Mom said quietly. "I found these after the agents left. I remember him working on these late at night, telling me it was just business strategy." "Why bring them to us?" I asked. "Because I'm not going to prison for him," her voice hardened. "My lawyer says cooperating is my only chance at avoiding charges." There it was self-preservation, not maternal concern, but I'd take it. "There's more," she continued. "Kurt's planning something. He called from a burner phone, wanted me to wire money to an account in Mexico, said we could start over there." "You refused?" Archer asked. I hung up on him. Mom finally met my eyes. "I've been many things. Ava, weak, definitely, willfully blind. Yes, but I won't be a fugitive." Mason tensed beside me. "This feels like a setup." "No," Fom said. "It's just too late." She pulled out a small device, a USB drive. "Bank records, the real ones, every transaction for the warehouse, the construction business, even the loans he took out in Ava's name. I've been copying files all night." Archer took the drive carefully. "Why were you keeping records?" "Insurance." Mom's laugh was bitter. "Ironic, right? I knew Kurt cut corners, maybe bent some laws. I thought if I kept records, I could protect myself if things went bad. I just never imagined they'd go this bad." I studied the woman who'd raised me, looking for the mother who'd bandaged skinned knees and read bedtime stories. She was in there somewhere, buried under years of compromise and cowardice. "Did you know he was forging my signature?" "Not at first. When I found out, he said it was temporary, just until the business recovered." She twisted her wedding ring, still wearing it. "Even now." "I told myself it wasn't really hurting you. Your credit was good. The payments were being made." "Until they weren't." "Until they weren't," she agreed. "The warehouse fire was supposed to fix everything. Kurt promised it would clear the debts, give us a fresh start. I swear I didn't know he said it." Archer interrupted. "Mrs. Halden, I need to advise you that anything you say here—" "I waive privilege. I'll testify." Mom looked at me again. "It won't undo what I let happen, but maybe it helps make it right." We left with 2 boxes of evidence and a signed affidavit. Mom would meet with federal prosecutors that afternoon. Kurt's house of cards had lost its last support beam. That night, from the safety of Archer's colleague's cabin an hour outside town, I watched the news report. Kurt's face filled the screen, the photo from his contractor's license making him look more respectable than he deserved. "Federal fugitive, armed and dangerous. Do not approach." "They'll find him," Mason said, but he was cleaning his pistol as he spoke. We'd stopped at his apartment just long enough to grab clothes and his licensed firearm. Guys like Kurt always think they're smarter than they are. My phone buzzed. Helen from next door. "Saw the news. Federal agents came by. Very polite. I told them about the boxes. Stay safe, dear." Another text. "This one from my book club. Rain check on the road trip. We'll wait for you." I smiled at that. Normal life, waiting patiently for justice to be served. But then another message, unknown number. "You destroyed everything. Hope you're happy. This isn't over." "He's spiraling," Archer said when I forwarded it. "Making threats via text. That's another federal charge. Keep documenting everything." The cabin was peaceful. All wood smoke and cricket songs. Mason had set up motion sensors around the perimeter. more for peace of mind than real expectation. Kurt was many things, but he wasn't wilderness savvy. He'd stick to what he knew: intimidation, property damage, financial manipulation. "I've been thinking," I said as we sat by the fire, "about what happens after. After they catch him. After everything, the trial, the sentences, the financial untangling." I poked at the fire, sending sparks up the chimney. "I can't stay in Harbor Ridge." "Portland offer stands," Mason said immediately. "Maybe, or maybe somewhere completely new. Somewhere nobody knows our family's implosion story. Running away. Starting fresh. There's a difference." We sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the week settling like ash. I'd pulled the thread that unraveled everything, but I couldn't bring myself to regret it. Kurt had built his empire on my name, my credit, my forced silence. Every forged signature had been a bet that I'd never fight back. He'd lost that bet spectacularly. My phone lit up with another unknown number. This time, I let it go to voicemail. Whatever Kurt wanted to say could be evidence for the prosecutors. I was done engaging with his chaos directly. "You know what the ironic part is?" I said. "He could have just asked. If he'd been honest about needing help, maybe I would have actually co-signed something, a legitimate loan with proper terms." "No," Mason said firmly. "That's trauma talking. You don't owe anyone financial destruction just because they're family." He was right. The cabin's walls felt like armor against a world where mothers chose criminals over children, where father figures became felons, where family meant liability instead of love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: federal investigations, grand jury testimony, the slow grind of justice. But tonight, I was safe. The evidence was secured. The authorities were hunting Kurt, and Mom had finally chosen truth over complicity. The dashcam that had captured everything sat on the table, its memory cards backed up in triplicate. Such a small device to bring down such a large lie. I picked up my phone one last time, not to check threats, but to text my book club, rain check accepted. But I'm choosing our next read something about redemption. Mason smiled at that. Redemption for who? For anyone brave enough to earn it? The fire crackled lower, and somewhere in the darkness, federal agents were closing in on a man who'd gambled everything on my silence. He'd lost, and finally, after years of keeping quiet, so had my fear. The civil emergency hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the Harbor Ridge Courthouse, a last-ditch effort by Kurt's legal team to prevent me from spreading defamatory content. We'd driven back from the cabin at dawn, Archer briefing us on strategy while Mason navigated empty streets. "Bradshaw's desperate," she explained. "He's trying to get a gag order. Claim you're prejudicing potential jurors. It's nonsense, but we need to show up." The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. Kurt's arrest had made regional news local contractor charged with arson, fraud, and assault, the kind of story that sold papers and generated clicks. "Ms. Mercer, did you know about the warehouse fire? Will you be testifying at the federal trial? How long was your stepfather stealing your identity?" Archer guided us through without comment, but I caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd. Mrs. Dalrymple, my high school guidance counselor, now silver-haired, but still radiating the same steady warmth that had gotten me through teenage years in that house. Inside the courtroom, Bradshaw looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. His client was still missing. His case was falling apart, and now he was reduced to procedural Hail Marys. "Your Honor," he began, "my client's reputation has been irreparably damaged by Ms. Mercer's reckless accusations." "Counselor," Judge Patricia Kowalski interrupted, "your client is currently a federal fugitive with a revoked bail. His reputation is the least of his problems. Nevertheless, the prejudicial nature of—" "I'll hear from Ms. Archer." Bryn stood, immaculate despite the early morning rush. "Your Honor, we filed a cross motion. Mr. Halden has engaged in systematic harassment of my client, including property damage and written threats sent after his federal arrest. We're seeking an expanded protective order and contempt charges." She presented the evidence: the slashed tires, the defaced photos, the threatening texts. Judge Kowalski's expression darkened with each exhibit. Motion for gag order denied, she ruled. Motion for expanded protection granted. If Mr. Halden comes within 1,000 feet of Miss Mercer or her family, he's to be arrested on sight. Bailiff, please forward these threat communications to the U.S. Marshals hunting Mr. Halden. Bradshaw slumped in his chair, but as we prepared to leave, an unexpected voice rang out from the gallery. Your Honor, may I address the court? Mrs. Dalrymple stood in the back row, hands clasped like she was still managing difficult students. Judge Kowalski frowned but nodded. I'm Margaret Dalrymple, retired Harbor Ridge High Counselor. I've known the Mercer family for 20 years. She looked directly at me, then back at the judge. I'd like to offer testimony about Kurt Halden's pattern of financial and emotional control over the women in that household. Bradshaw objected, but Judge Kowalski was intrigued. This isn't a trial, Ms. Dalrymple, but I'll allow a brief statement for the record. What followed was 10 minutes of devastating truth. Mrs. Dalrymple described years of concerning signs, bruises explained away. College fund money mysteriously disappearing. Ava's sudden reluctance to pursue out-of-state scholarships despite excellent grades. I documented everything, she concluded, producing a thick folder. Every incident, every excuse, every time that young woman came to school trying to hide what was happening at home. I couldn't act on suspicions then, but I won't stay silent now. The courtroom was tomb quiet when she finished. Even Bradshaw seemed shaken. Judge Kowalski accepted the folder into evidence, her jaw tight. Mr. Bradshaw, I suggest you advise your client if you can find him to surrender immediately. This matter is well beyond civil remedies. She stood. Court is adjourned. Outside, Mrs. Dalrymple waited by the door. Up close, I could see tears in her eyes. I should have done more, she said simply. All those years, I knew something was wrong. You couldn't have, I said, meaning it. I wasn't ready to hear it then. She pressed a business card into my hand. I volunteer at the women's shelter now. When you're ready, when this is over, come talk to me about sharing your story. Other women need to know it's possible to break free. The ride back to Mason's was quiet. The protective order was just paper, but it felt like armor. Kurt was still out there, but the law was finally on my side. That afternoon brought unexpected news. Agent Kepler called with an update that changed everything. We executed a search warrant at the gym next to the warehouse, she said. Their security system did archive old footage, but someone had tried to delete specific dates. Our tech team recovered them. And crystal clear video of Kurt Halden entering the warehouse at 11:15 p.m. on the night of the fire. He's carrying gas cans. Even better, he looks directly at the camera, probably thinking the footage would be destroyed in the fire. But the gym was far enough away. Exactly. Their cameras survived, and Kurt never knew they had his face on file. She paused. There's something else. Your mother's financial records led us to 3 more arsons over the past decade. Different properties, different insurance companies, but the same pattern. Kurt's been doing this for years. A serial arsonist. My stepfather hadn't just burned one building, he'd made a career of it. The nausea hit hard and fast. We're adding multiple counts, Kepler continued. Life sentence territory now, which brings me to why I'm really calling. We need you to wear a wire. He's in hiding. He'll reach out. Men like him always do. They can't stand losing control, especially to women they've dominated. When he contacts you, and he will, we need to be ready. I agreed, though the thought of hearing Kurt's voice again made my skin crawl. Kepler arranged for an agent to bring the equipment to Mason's apartment. Small, sophisticated, designed to look like a fitness tracker. Just wear it constantly, the tech agent explained. It's activated by voice patterns. If Halden calls or approaches, it starts recording automatically. That evening, as predicted, my phone rang from another burner number. I activated the wire, put the phone on speaker so Mason could witness, and answered. You ungrateful bitch, Kurt's voice, slurred with alcohol and rage. 20 years I provided for you, kept a roof over your head, and this is how you repay me. You stole from me. Kurt, you assaulted me. I disciplined you, like your mother should have years ago. Too soft. Always too soft. Where are you? Close enough. Something crashed in his background. You think you've won? I've got insurance policies you can't even imagine. One phone call, and your precious evidence goes up in smoke. Just like the warehouse. More arson threats, really. Not threats. Promises. His breathing was heavy, labored. That Fed you're working with Kepler. Her office might have an accident. Your brother's apartment could have electrical problems. Accidents happen. Ava, families burn. The line went dead. Mason was already on his phone to Kepler while I stood frozen, processing the threat. He'd gone from financial predator to potential mass killer, cornered and desperate. They're tracing the call, Mason reported. Kepler's getting protective details for everyone he mentioned. But I was thinking about something else Kurt had said. Insurance policies. What if he meant that literally? What if there were more properties? More potential targets? I pulled out Mom's USB drive, started digging through the files she'd copied. They're buried in Kurt's business folder insurance policies for 6 different properties, all overvalued, all with mysterious claims histories. Mason, my voice was steadier than I felt. I think I know where he is. The 6th property on the list was new. Purchased just 3 months ago. A hunting cabin in the mountains, 2 hours from Harbor Ridge, insured for triple its tax assessment value. The kind of place someone might go to ground, or torch for one last payout. Kepler mobilized a team immediately. Good catch. Stay put, stay safe. We'll handle it from here. But sitting still felt impossible. This man had controlled my life through fear and fraud for too long. Now he was threatening everyone who'd helped me. The wire on my wrist seemed to pulse with purpose. He'll call again, I told Mason. When he realizes we found the cabin, when he has nowhere left to run, he'll want the last word. Let him have it, from federal prison. We waited, the apartment feeling smaller with each passing hour. The news played on mute, no updates on the manhunt yet. Archer checked in twice, reminding us that the civil trial would proceed regardless of Kurt's capture. The insurance companies were circling, ready to recover their losses. Then, as the sun set over Harbor Ridge, painting the sky the color of old flames, my phone buzzed. Not a call this time, a video message. Kurt stood in what looked like the cabin from the insurance photos, gas can in hand. His face was haggard, eyes wild. Behind him, boxes of documents evidence, probably. You want to play with fire, little girl? He splashed gasoline across the boxes. Let's play. The video ended. I was already forwarding it to Kepler when she called. We're 15 minutes out, she said. That video is evidence of intent. If he burns that cabin, more federal charges, I finished. He's gift-wrapping his own conviction. Ava, her voice gentled. I know this is hard, but you've done everything right. Let us finish it. I thought about Mrs. Dalrymple's folder of documentation, Mom's box of evidence, my dashcam footage, all of us, collecting proof of Kurt's crimes, waiting for the moment when someone would finally listen. That moment was now. Agent Kepler, I said, when you arrest him, tell him something for me. What's that? Tell him the dashcam is still recording. She actually laughed. Will do. Stay safe. This ends tonight. Mason and I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on. Somewhere in the mountains, federal agents were closing in on a desperate man with a gas can and nothing left to lose. The wire on my wrist stayed silent, no more calls, no more threats. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that every document I'd found, every recording I'd saved, every brave choice to speak up had led to this moment. Kurt had taught me about fire, in his way, how it consumed everything it touched, left nothing but ash and insurance claims. But he'd forgotten the most important lesson some things don't burn. Truth, evidence, the courage to say, enough. The dashcam on Mason's table blinked steadily, still recording, still watching. Always watching. The emergency custody hearing was called for 8 a.m. barely 12 hours after Kurt's video threat. Judge Kowalski had agreed to convene early, understanding the urgency. The federal marshals had found the mountain cabin engulfed in flames. Kurt nowhere to be seen. He'd torched his own hideout rather than surrender. "Your Honor," Bradshaw stood, looking like he'd given up on sleep entirely. "My client is exercising his Fifth Amendment rights and won't be testifying today." Because Kurt sat at the defense table in orange coveralls and shackles, captured at a truck stop 40 miles from the burning cabin. His face was gaunt, eyes darting between exits like a trapped animal. They'd caught him trying to board a bus to Mexico with a fake ID and $30,000 cash. "Noted," Judge Kowalski said dryly. "Ms. Archer." Bryn rose, radiating controlled fury. "Your Honor, we're here because Mr. Halden continues to threaten my client even from custody. Last night, he made 3 calls from the detention center to associates, instructing them to handle Ms. Mercer." She played the recordings, Kurt's voice, telling someone named Rico to visit the bitch, telling another associate to make her regret everything. The courtroom tensed with each word. "Furthermore," Archer continued, "we have a witness who would like to address Mr. Halden's pattern of coercion." "Objection," Bradshaw said weakly. "This is a custody hearing, not—" "Overruled. I'll hear the witness." Mrs. Dalrymple entered again, but this time she wasn't alone. 3 other women followed. I recognized one as a cashier from the grocery store, another as a nurse from the clinic. Women I'd seen around Harbor Ridge for years. "Your Honor," Mrs. Dalrymple began, "these women have all experienced Mr. Halden's tactics, loans they didn't sign for, threats when they refused his schemes, a pattern spanning 15 years. The cashier, Carmen, spoke first. "He dated my sister in 2010, got her to co-sign for a boat, then dumped her when the payments came due. She lost her house." The nurse, Patricia, was next. "He hired me for his construction crew's medical checks. When I refused to falsify injury reports for insurance claims, he threatened to report me to the nursing board with fake complaints." The third woman, elderly and trembling, just held up a foreclosure notice. "My grandson worked for him. When the boy quit, Kurt put loans in his name. We lost everything fighting it." Kurt's face had gone from pale to red to something beyond color. He lunged forward, chains rattling. "Lying bitches, all of you. This is a setup. Mr. Halden." Judge Kowalski's gavel cracked like a gunshot. "One more outburst and you'll be gagged." "They're all lying." But his voice cracked, the mask finally slipping completely. "That one owes me money. That one's kid was stealing from job sites, and her—" He pointed at me. "She's turned them all against me, my own family." "Your family." I stood without planning to, words pouring out. "You stole my name, my credit, my future. You burned buildings and blamed electrical problems. You hit me for refusing to sign fraudulent loans. What family does that? You needed discipline structure. Everything I did was for yourself." My voice was steady now, clear. "Every signature you forged, every fire you set, every woman you threatened, it was all for yourself. And we're done being silent about it." The courtroom erupted, Bradshaw trying to calm Kurt, who was screaming about conspiracies and ungrateful women, the marshals moving in as he tried to lunge past the defense table, Judge Kowalski pounding her gavel, threatening contempt. When order finally returned, Kurt was gone, dragged back to holding, still ranting. Bradshaw sat alone, shuffling papers with shaking hands. "Motion to revoke bail is granted," Judge Kowalski said unnecessarily. "Mr. Halden will remain in federal custody pending trial. Ms. Archer, please ensure these witnesses have protection orders. This court is deeply disturbed by the pattern of predation revealed today." Outside, the women gathered on the courthouse steps. Carmen hugged me, whispering, "Thank you for being the first to speak up." Patricia exchanged numbers with Mrs. Dalrymple, talking about starting a support group. The elderly woman just patted my hand and walked away. Foreclosure notice still clutched tight. "That was incredible," Mason said, "but I barely heard him. I was thinking about patterns, how Kurt had operated for years, targeting women he thought wouldn't fight back, single mothers, elderly grandmothers, young women trained to respect father figures. He'd built an empire on our silence. Agent Kepler met us at Archer's office with updates. The cabin fire had destroyed some evidence, but not all. Kurt's truck, abandoned at the scene, contained boxes of documents he'd tried to save. More insurance policies, more fraud, more victims. "We're looking at RICO charges now," she explained. "Racketeering? This wasn't just fraud, it was an ongoing criminal enterprise, with the women who testified today, plus your mother's cooperation, plus the physical evidence." "Life sentence?" Archer asked. "Multiple life sentences, and that's before the state charges for assault, arson, and attempted witness intimidation." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. Kurt would spend his remaining years in federal prison, but how many women had suffered before I finally spoke up? How many foreclosures, bankruptcies, burned buildings? "Hey," Mason touched my shoulder. "You can't carry guilt for his crimes. You stopped him. That's what matters." That evening, we returned to Mason's apartment to find Mom sitting on the front steps. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without Kurt's shadow looming over her. "The federal prosecutor says I won't be charged," she said without preamble. "Cooperating witness status, they called it." "Good," I said, meaning it. "I need to tell you something." She stood, wringing her hands. "About your college fund." My stomach dropped. "What about it?" "Kurt didn't steal it. I gave it to him, invested it in his first business." The words tumbled out like a confession. "He promised to triple it, said you'd have enough for any school you wanted. When it failed, I couldn't tell you. Let you think the money just wasn't there." The betrayal hit fresh, sharp as broken glass. All those community college courses while my friends went away to university. All those nights waiting tables to afford textbooks. Not because we were poor, but because Mom had gambled my future on Kurt's lies. "I'll pay you back," she said quickly. "Every penny, with interest. I know it doesn't fix things, but—" "Stop." I was too tired for more revelations. "Just stop." We stood there in the gathering dusk, 3 survivors of Kurt's war on truth. Mom clutching promises of repayment, Mason ready to defend me from fresh wounds, and me holding a wire recorder full of threats from a man who'd called himself family. "I'm leaving Harbor Ridge," I announced. "After the trial, after everything's settled, I'm done with this place." Mom's face crumpled, but she nodded. "I understand." "I'll help you," Mason offered. "Wherever you want to go." My phone buzzed. A text from my book club. "Heard the news. Drinks tonight. You don't have to talk about it. Just be with friends." Friends. People who knew me without the weight of Kurt's crimes. Mom's betrayals. Years of silence. The road trip we'd planned seemed like a lifetime ago. But they were still there. Still waiting. "I have to go," I told Mom. "Take care of yourself." Ava. "The lawyer will handle any communication about restitution." I turned away, then back. "And Mom, get therapy, real therapy. Figure out why you chose him over me. Maybe someday we can talk about it." I left her on the steps and drove to the wine bar where my book club met. They'd saved my usual seat, had my favorite Pinot Grigio waiting. Nobody asked about the bruises fading on my shoulder or the news reports featuring my name. They just made space for me to exist beyond the wreckage. "So," Janet raised her glass, "about that road trip, I vote we upgrade to a beach house rental. Ava's buying since she's about to win a massive civil suit." We laughed real, cleansing laughter that had nothing to do with trials or testimony. For one evening, I wasn't Kurt's victim or a star witness. I was just Ava, discussing whether we should read thriller or romance next, debating coastal routes, being normal. The wire recorder sat in my purse, silent now. No more threats to document. No more evidence to gather. Kurt was in custody, his network of enablers scattered, his empire of ashes exposed. The legal machinery would grind on for months, maybe years, but my part was mostly done. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Archer about the civil suits. 8 insurance companies wanted to join our action against Kurt, seeking recovery of over $2 million in fraudulent claims. Mom's promise of repayment would become part of a larger restitution order. The women who testified would file their own claims. But tonight, I sat with friends who'd waited patiently while I fought my way free. The wine was good, the conversation easy, and for the first time since finding those loan documents, I felt like myself again. Not the girl who hid from her stepfather's rage, not the woman who stayed silent while her identity was stolen piece by piece. Just Ava Mercer, 32 systems engineer, book club member, survivor. My phone lit up with one last message. Agent Kepler. Thought you should know. Kurt tried to call you from detention again tonight. We didn't put it through. He wanted to apologize. His lawyer says, I told them you weren't interested in hearing it. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Kurt had said enough over the years: lies, threats, manipulations dressed as family concern. His apology, if genuine, came 15 years and 5 burned buildings too late. The book club was debating destinations when I rejoined the conversation. Beach versus mountains, luxury versus rustic, wine country versus wilderness. So many choices, so many roads that led away from Harbor Ridge and everything it represented. Anywhere, I said when they asked my preference, as long as it's far from here. They raised their glasses in understanding. Sometimes the best journey was the one that took you furthest from where you started. And I was ready finally, completely ready to travel that distance. The road trip would happen, the trials would proceed. Justice would be served in measured doses by people in black robes citing statute numbers. But healing, that would happen on highways and beaches, in new cities where nobody knew my name, in quiet moments when I remembered that I'd spoken truth to power and won. Kurt was finished. I was just beginning. The federal way station on I-81 stretched across 6 lanes of interstate commerce, a concrete and steel checkpoint where the law intersected with logistics. Agent Kepler had called at 5 a.m. with the tip. Kurt's associates were moving the remaining inventory from his warehouse properties, trying to liquidate assets before federal seizure. We've got Rico Salazar driving a semi with trailer, she'd explained. Manifests show construction equipment, but our informant says it's evidence Kurt wanted destroyed. State troopers will intercept at the way station, but we need you there for identification. Mason drove while I reviewed photos on Kepler's tablet. Insurance claim documents showing supposedly destroyed inventory, matched against shipping manifests dated yesterday. Kurt might be in custody, but his network was scrambling to cover tracks. There, I pointed as we pulled into the official vehicles area. A Peterbilt with Tennessee plates sat in the inspection lane, Rico visible in the driver's seat. He was sweating despite the morning chill, hands drumming on the steering wheel. State Trooper Williams approached our car. Ms. Mercer, Agent Kepler said you could identify some items if we find them. I've studied the insurance claims, I confirmed. I know what he reported as destroyed. The inspection team was already at work. Rico had produced paperwork showing a load of reclaimed construction materials bound for a recycler in Ohio, but when they opened the trailer doors, even from 50 yards away, I could see the problem. Those are new, Mason said. Look at the manufacturing stickers. Williams spoke into his radio, and within minutes, the scene transformed. Federal agents materialized from unmarked vehicles. Rico was removed from the cab, read his rights while protesting innocence. A forensic team began cataloging the trailer's contents. Ms. Mercer, an agent called. We need you. Inside the trailer, Kurt's fraud laid bare. Industrial generators with serial numbers matching units supposedly destroyed in the warehouse fire. Copper wire spools that insurance had paid out $50,000 to replace. Tool sets, welding equipment, even office furniture all listed as total losses. All pristine. He never lost anything, I said, documenting with my phone. The fire was just for show. He moved everything out first, collected the insurance, then kept the goods. Agent Kepler arrived as they were sealing the scene. Outstanding catch. This physical evidence proves premeditation. Kurt didn't just commit arson, he orchestrated an elaborate fraud involving multiple conspirators. Will Rico testify? Mason asked. His lawyer's already reaching out. Seems Mr. Salazar doesn't want to face federal charges for a boss who's going down anyway. She smiled grimly. Kurt's kingdom is falling apart. His foreman called this morning, wanting to make a deal. Says he has records of every fraudulent insurance job for the past decade. We followed the convoy back to the federal building, where the seized inventory would be processed. Each item photographed, cataloged, matched against insurance payouts. The final tally would likely push Kurt's fraud over $3 million, triggering enhanced sentences and mandatory minimums that would keep him imprisoned until he was ancient. But the morning's surprises weren't done. "There's someone here to see you," the desk sergeant informed me. "Says she was your neighbor growing up." In the lobby waited Maria Espinoza, who'd lived 3 houses down from Mom's place. She clutched a manila envelope like a life preserver, her face drawn with the weight of long-held secrets. "I heard you were helping with the investigation," she began. "I have something I should have given police years ago." Inside the envelope photographs, Kurt at various properties, over the years, always at night, always carrying the same red gas cans. Maria had been an amateur photographer, shooting the moon and stars, accidentally capturing a serial arsonist at work. "I developed these in my home darkroom," she explained. "When I realized what they showed, I was terrified. Kurt had connections, friends in the department. I thought no one would believe me." "You kept them all these years?" I asked. "Hidden in my attic, after my husband died. I almost threw them out. But then I saw the news, saw you standing up to him." She squeezed my hand. "You gave me courage." The photos were damning. Kurt entering buildings that later burned. Kurt loading trucks with inventory before fires. Kurt meeting with men who'd later provide alibis. A photographic record of crimes spanning 15 years. Kepler's team descended on the evidence like sharks sensing blood. Each photo was scanned, enhanced, cross-referenced with fire department records. Maria gave a detailed statement, explaining when and where each shot was taken. "This changes our entire timeline," Kepler told me privately. "We can now link Kurt to 12 separate arsons. That's serial arson, federal jurisdiction, possible life without parole. The machinery of justice, grinding forward with increasing momentum." That afternoon brought the civil component. Archer had arranged a meeting with the insurance company's legal teams. 8 firms crowded into her conference room, all seeking the same thing, their money back. "My client has been instrumental in exposing this fraud," Archer began. "Without Ms. Mercer's courage, Kurt Halden would still be burning buildings and collecting checks. We expect that cooperation to be reflected in any settlement." The lead insurance attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Corbin, nodded. "We're prepared to offer Ms. Mercer a finder's fee of 15% of recovered funds, plus full restoration of her credit and elimination of any debts incurred through identity theft." 20%, Archer countered, "plus damages for emotional distress and lost opportunities due to credit destruction." They negotiated while I sat quietly, calculating. Even 15% of $3 million would be enough to start over anywhere. Buy a house without Kurt's shadow, return to school for the degrees I'd abandoned, build the life he'd tried to steal. "Additionally," Corbin continued, "we're filing civil RICO suits against all conspirators. Ms. Mercer's testimony will be crucial. We're prepared to cover all her expenses during trial, including relocation if needed for safety." Safety, such a simple word for such a complex need. Kurt was locked up, but his associates remained free. The women who testified were getting protective orders. But paper didn't stop bullets or fire bottles. "I want something else," I said, speaking for the first time. The women who came forward, Carmen, Patricia, Mrs. Chen, they need restitution too. Whatever Kurt stole from them, whatever damage he did to their credit, make them whole. Corbin exchanged glances with her team. "That's significant money." Kurt destroyed lives for profit, The least these insurance companies can do is help rebuild them. I met her stare. Or I can make that a condition of my testimony. Your choice. Archer hid a smile. The insurance lawyers huddled, whispering urgently. They knew their cases depended on my cooperation, my evidence, my willingness to spend months in courtrooms reliving trauma. Agreed, Corbin finally said. Full restitution for all identified victims, administered through a trust Ms. Archer will oversee. Is that acceptable? It was more than acceptable. It was justice with compound interest. We were finalizing details when my phone rang. Mom. Don't hang up, she said quickly. I'm at the federal building. They want me to identify contents from Kurt's office safe. I can't do this alone. I looked at Mason, who shrugged. Your choice. His expression said, Conference room 3, I told her. She arrived looking fragile, escorted by a federal agent carrying evidence boxes. Her hands shook as she signed the chain of custody forms. Whatever remained of her marriage to Kurt was about to be reduced to catalogued evidence. These are from his personal safe, the agent explained. We need confirmation of what's legitimate business documentation versus fraudulent materials. Mom opened the first box like it might contain snakes. Inside marriage certificate, insurance policies, property deeds. But underneath, the real treasures. Forged documents with my signature. Fake contracts. A notebook detailing his plans for future arsons. Complete with target properties and estimated payouts. He called it his retirement plan, Mom whispered. Said by the time he hit 60, we'd have enough to buy an island somewhere. Built on ashes and stolen identities, I replied. She pulled out a final item, a life insurance policy on me, dated last year. $500,000 payout to Kurt if I died accidentally. My blood chilled. I didn't know, Mom said urgently. I swear I didn't know about this one. Kepler took the document, expression grim. This suggests escalation, from property crimes to potential murder, I finished. He was planning to kill me for insurance money. The room went silent. Even the hardened federal agents looked disturbed. How many accidents might Kurt have arranged if I hadn't fought back? How close had I come to being another fire statistic? This changes the charges again, Kepler said. Conspiracy to commit murder for hire. We'll need to investigate every accident, every coincidence around your family. I thought about Dad's death when I was 4. Heart attack. They'd said, natural causes. But now, pull my father's death certificate, I told Kepler. Robert Mercer, died 2003, and check if there was life insurance. Mom's face went white. You can't think Kurt... I don't know what to think anymore. The weight of possibility crushed down. But we check everything now. Every death, every accident, every penny that ended up in Kurt's pocket. The meeting dissolved into chaos. New investigations launched. Old cases reopened. Mom collapsed into a chair, facing the possibility that she'd married Dad's killer. Mason drove me home in silence. There were no words for the magnitude of betrayal still unfolding. Kurt hadn't just stolen money, he'd possibly stolen lives. Planning my death like a business transaction. You saved yourself, Mason finally said. By speaking up, by fighting back, you saved your own life. The dashcam that started it all sat on my dresser at his apartment. Such a simple device, purchased for a road trip I still hadn't taken. Now it was evidence in a federal case that grew larger by the hour. My phone buzzed. Archer. Insurance companies agreed to all terms. Trust fund established for victims. Your portion cleared after taxes, $400,000. Kurt's victims will each receive full restitution plus damages. Freedom money, enough to start over, to build something clean and new far from Harbor Ridge's ashes. The book club was still planning that beach trip. Maybe I'd join them and never come back. But first, there were trials to endure, Kurt to face, truth to tell in sterile courtrooms while he sat shackled, watching his empire of lies collapse into evidence tags and exhibit numbers. Tomorrow, the grand jury would convene. 19 citizens would hear how one man burned his way to wealth, leaving scorched earth and stolen identities in his wake. They'd see the photos, hear the testimony, count the millions in fraud, and they'd indict him for all of it. I opened my laptop, started searching for apartments in cities I'd never seen. Portland, where Mason lived, Austin, where no one knew my name, Boston, close enough to visit but far enough to breathe. Each listing was a promise life after Kurt, safety after terror, future after a past that tried to consume me. The road trip could wait. First, I had to finish tearing down everything Kurt built on suffering, brick by brick, lie by lie, until nothing remained but truth and consequences. And maybe, finally, peace. The federal courthouse in Harbor Ridge had never seen a crowd like this. Every seat filled, overflow rooms with video feeds, media trucks circling the block like vultures. Kurt Halden's trial had become the biggest story in the state contractor turned serial arsonist, identity thief, and attempted murderer. I sat in the witness section between Mason and Agent Kepler, watching Kurt enter in shackles. 6 months of investigation had aged him 20 years. The swagger was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of a man facing life without parole. United States versus Kurt Halden, the clerk announced. 37 counts including arson, wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, and racketeering. 37 counts, each one representing a life damaged, a building burned, a future stolen. The prosecutors had built an airtight case with my dashcam footage as the cornerstone. That simple device had unraveled 15 years of crimes. The insurance companies had already won their civil suits. Kurt's assets liquidated, his construction business dissolved, his conspirators testifying against him for reduced sentences. Rico Salazar was serving 3 years. The foreman got 18 months. Even Kurt's lawyer had withdrawn, replaced by a public defender who looked overwhelmed. The prosecution calls Ava Mercer. I walked to the witness stand on steady legs. 6 months of therapy had prepared me for this moment. 6 months of rebuilding credit, restoring identity, reclaiming life. The bruises were long healed, but the memory of that night in the garage remained sharp useful now as testimony. For 3 hours, I laid out the truth, the forged signatures, the assault when I refused to comply, the discovery of his serial arsons through dashcam footage, the threats, the stalking, the life insurance policy that would have made him rich if I'd died. "Did you fear for your life?" the prosecutor asked. Yes, when I found that policy, I understood I was never meant to survive his plans. Kurt's face contorted, but he stayed silent. His attorney's cross-examination was perfunctory. What defense could there be against video evidence, DNA, financial records, and multiple witnesses? Mom testified next, voice barely above a whisper. She'd aged 2, sold the house, moved to a small apartment where Kurt's shadow couldn't reach. Her testimony about finding evidence in his safe drew gasps from the gallery. The notebook planning future arsons, the forged documents, the photos of buildings before they burned. "I was willfully blind," she admitted. "I chose not to see what he was because facing it meant admitting I'd endangered my daughter." The parade of witnesses continued for days. Carmen, Patricia, Mrs. Chen, each woman telling her story of Kurt's predation. Maria Espinoza with her photographs spanning decades. Helen from next door, describing the night she saw Kurt emptying the warehouse. Federal agents presenting financial forensics that showed a clear pattern of escalating crimes. Then came the surprise witness Dad's former partner from the hardware store. "Robert was healthy as a horse," he testified. "Ran 5 miles every morning, perfect checkups. Then Kurt started coming around, talking about going into business together. 3 months later, Robert's dead of a heart attack at 38. Never sat right with me." The prosecutor presented evidence that Dad's death had netted Kurt a partnership in the hardware store through Mom, plus $200,000 in life insurance, the same pattern he'd planned for me: infiltrate, insure, eliminate. Kurt's defense was pitiful, claiming I'd orchestrated everything for attention, that the women were lying for money, that the dashcam footage was somehow edited. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 37 times the word rang out. 37 nails in the coffin of Kurt's freedom. Life without parole plus 380 years. To be served in federal maximum security. As they led him out, Kurt turned to me one last time. No words the court officers wouldn't allow it. Just a look that tried to convey. What hatred, regret. It didn't matter anymore. He was done. Outside, the media swarmed, but I had nothing left to say that hadn't been spoken in court. Archer guided us to a waiting car, past the cameras and questions, away from the courthouse where justice had finally been served. The real ending came quietly. A week later, the insurance trust had finished distributing funds to Kurt's victims. Carmen got her sister's house back. Patricia's nursing license was cleared of all false complaints. The elderly woman's grandson could rebuild his credit and life. My portion sat in a new account at a credit union 2 states away. I was done with Harbor Ridge banks. Enough to start over properly, enough to finally take that road trip, then keep driving to somewhere Kurt had never touched. Portland offer still stands, Mason said as we packed my apartment. Everything I owned fit in 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. Traveling light felt appropriate. I know, but I think I need somewhere completely new. Maybe Austin, maybe Denver, somewhere nobody knows this story. He understood. We'd always be family, bound by blood and survival, but we each needed our own distance from the wreckage. Mom had written a letter I hadn't opened yet. It sat on my dashboard as I did final checks on the car. New tires, full tank, and yes, a new dashcam, top of the line, with cloud backup and collision detection. Some habits were worth keeping. My book club met me at the city limits sign. 3 friends in a rented convertible, ready for that delayed beach trip. They'd waited through the investigation, the trial, the aftermath. Real friendship measured in patience and presence. Ready? Janet asked from the driver's seat. I looked back at Harbor Ridge one last time. Somewhere in federal prison. Kurt was learning that concrete cells don't burn. Mom was in therapy, finally confronting decades of enabling. The warehouse site would become a shopping center, its ashes paved over and forgotten. And I was leaving. Finally and completely, the dashcam recorded our departure, just as it had recorded everything else. But this footage was different. It showed the open road ahead, not the crimes behind. Ready? I said. We drove toward the coast, toward cities I'd never seen and futures Kurt couldn't steal. In my purse, the settlement check and a new driver's license with an address far from here. In the cloud, backed up forever. The evidence that had saved my life and ended his reign of terror. The dashcam blinked steadily, recording our escape into freedom. I'd learned to document everything, but now I was recording joy instead of fear, possibility instead of proof. Miles passed. Harbor Ridge shrank to nothing in the mirrors. My phone buzzed with messages from the other women, celebrating their own new beginnings with recovered funds and cleared names. We'd formed an unlikely sisterhood, bound by survival and the courage to speak truth. The beach house waited a full week of books, wine, and waves. After that, the whole country stretched ahead. I had skills, references, and the kind of story that would make me careful, but never scared again. Kurt had taught me unintended lessons: always verify, always document, always trust your instincts when someone asks you to sign something. But mostly, he'd taught me that silence was the only prison I couldn't escape on my own. The moment I spoke up, started recording, began fighting back, that's when the locks broke and the real investigation began. The sun set over the Pacific as we reached the coast. My friends debated dinner options while I sat quietly, feeling the weight of the past 6 months lifting with each breath of salt air. Tomorrow we'd wake to waves and seagulls instead of court dates and testimony prep. Justice had been served in measured doses by people in robes citing statute numbers. Kurt would die in prison, his empire of ashes scattered by federal agents and insurance investigators. The women he'd victimized were rebuilding with restitution funds and cleared credit. And I was here, at the edge of the continent, finally free to imagine a future where no one would ever again forge my signature or plan my death for profit. The dashcam would keep recording not from paranoia now, but from hard-won wisdom. Some stories end with fire. Mine ended with water waves washing away footprints, tides erasing what needed to be forgotten. In the morning, I'd wake to possibilities as endless as the ocean. Kurt was finished. I was just beginning. The dashcam caught our laughter as we pulled into the beach house driveway. 4 women who'd refused to let one man's crimes define their story. Evidence of joy now, archived forever in the cloud. Exactly as it should be. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope it resonated with you, wherever you are in the world. Please share in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to connect and hear your thoughts about Ava's journey. If this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button, and don't forget to click the hype button to help more people discover this tale of courage and justice. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share more stories with you soon.